Welcome to the Nordic Venture Show, your speed date with the coolest ventures, brightest founders, and exciting things happening in the Nordics. In this episode, our venture date is with Wingbits, decentralized flight tracking, and crypto rewards.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a look at a really fascinating project you flagged. Wingbits.
Yeah, Wingbits. They're trying to sort of shake up the world of flight tracking.
You send over some materials, their website, their mission page, blog posts. So our goal today is really just to unpack what it is, how it works, and, why it might be interesting.
Exactly. We've got their own words, their Discover page, recent news from their blog. It gives us a pretty good picture.
And for our listeners, the idea is to get a clear, concise understanding of what Wingbits is up to, focusing on the innovative bits without getting lost in super technical details, finding the aha moment.
Right. And the hook is pretty compelling, isn't it?
It really is. Did you know that a huge chunk of the, multi-trillion-dollar aviation industry gets its flight data from unpaid volunteers?
It sounds kind of wild when you put it like that. But yeah, that's the traditional setup.
And Wingbits is basically saying, hold on, we have a different idea, so let's explore that.
Okay, so where do we start? Maybe with the problem they see.
Good idea. So this traditional flight tracking, it relies on this community, right? Volunteers, enthusiasts using their own, sometimes quite specialized hardware.
Exactly. And Wingbits points out this model can be, they use the word ineffective.
Ineffective how?
They mention issues like inconsistent data quality, gaps in coverage, maybe timing issues.
Okay.
And more seriously, they bring up spoofed data, fake signals being potentially introduced.
Right. Spoofed data sounds not good. Especially when you're talking about airplanes. That seems like a major security concern.
It absolutely is. If the foundational data isn't reliable, everything built on top of it, like air traffic management or safety analysis, could be compromised.
And are there other issues with the old way?
Yeah, they also mentioned that participation in these volunteer networks is apparently declining.
Okay.
And there's limited control over where the network expands. You can't just easily decide to cover a new remote area if there are no volunteers there.
Right, you're dependent on individual enthusiasm.
And the big one, maybe the core philosophical point for Wingbits, is that these volunteers who provide absolutely critical data, they don't get rewarded for it. Not directly, anyway.
So Wingbits comes in and says, okay, let's flip that. They want to be the first flight tracking network that actually rewards contributors.
That's the core pitch. A rewarded community. They say anyone can join in.
And their stated mission is to build something more advanced, more secure, and fundamentally fairer.
Fairer to the people actually collecting the data. Makes sense.
So how does this reward system work? It involves crypto, right? Their Wings tokens.
Yeah, that's the incentive mechanism. Wings is their native cryptocurrency.
Okay.
And the basic idea is you operate hardware that Wingbits approves, you share the real-time flight data your hardware picks up, and you earn Wings tokens for doing that.
And is it complicated to set up? Do you need to be like an aviation expert?
They claim it's pretty easy to start. No special prior knowledge needed. The process seems to be register an account on their platform, claim a location presumably where you'll set up your gear.
Okay, claim a spot.
Then you buy and set up the hardware. They point you to approved distributors for that.
Right, so you need their specific kind of hardware.
It seems so, yeah. And once it's running, you just start, as they put it, mapping the sky and earning tokens.
Okay, let's talk about that hardware and the tech side. They mention custom ADS-B hardware and cryptographically secured data. Sounds important.
Very important. ADS-B, that's Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast. It's the standard tech where planes transmit their position, ID, altitude, stuff like that.
Got it.
Wingbits uses custom ADS-B receivers. And the key is they're designed to be cryptographically secure.
What does that mean in practice, cryptographically secure?
It means the data coming from the hardware is signed digitally, like a fingerprint. It proves the data came from that specific device and hasn't been tampered with.
So that directly tackles the spoofed data problem you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. It provides a layer of trust and verification right at the source. They say this leads to provably accurate data.
Provably accurate. And they also talk about millimeter-level precision. That sounds incredibly precise for tracking planes.
It does sound almost too good to be true. Maybe. But that's the claim. Millimeter-level GPS precision, likely achieved through integration with other technologies like GNSS correction services.
Which they mentioned collaborating on, right? With HFX and GeoNet.
Yes, precisely. That collaboration likely underpins the high-precision location aspect, which adds another layer of validation to the flight data itself. If you know exactly where the receiver is, you can be more confident about the position data it relays.
So better hardware, secure data transmission, high precision, it all feeds back into creating a more reliable network.
That's the goal. Superior, far-reaching, accurate, and secure data. And contributing this kind of data is what earns you the Wings tokens.
Okay, so the token is purely an incentive for running the hardware.
It's the native currency of the Wingbits ecosystem. Earned by operating the hardware and sharing the flight data, yes. Its future utility will likely depend on their mainnet launch and partnerships.
And it seems like people are responding to this model. Their growth numbers are pretty striking.
They really are. They state over 2,100 live stations are already running.
Wow.
In more than 90 countries. And tracking, they say, over 120,000 flights every single day.
That's a lot of data points from a relatively new network.
It is. And they make a bold claim. Fastest growing flight tracking network in history.
Okay.
6 times faster, they reckon, than the established players grew in their early stages.
What do you think drives that speed? Just the crypto incentive or something else?
It's likely a mix. The token reward is obviously a big draw in the current climate, but maybe also frustration with the limitations of existing systems. And perhaps their tech is genuinely appealing to enthusiasts and potential business users alike.
And they also boast about low latency. 2 seconds delay for 95% of the data.
Yeah, that near real-time aspect is crucial for many aviation applications. Air traffic control, airline operation centers, they need data now. 2 seconds is very fast.
And all this growth and tech development, it needs funding. They've raised quite a bit, haven't they?
They have. The latest figures suggest $9.3 million in total funding.
Wow, okay. That's serious backing.
It definitely signals significant investor confidence. That kind of money allows them to scale up production of the hardware, invest in R&D, marketing, expand the team, fuel that rapid growth.
So who actually uses this data? Is it just the big airlines and air traffic control?
Well, they certainly mentioned the global aviation industry relies on this kind of data for daily operations. That's the primary market for sure.
Right.
But Wingbits seems to have broader ambitions. They talk about their context-rich data, potentially unlocking new innovations and insights.
Context-rich, what does that imply? Maybe the added precision or security?
Possibly. It could mean combining the accurate flight data with other data sets, or using the precision for new types of analysis, empowering maybe smaller businesses or different kinds of applications within aviation.
So for someone listening, the takeaway is that this could lead to better, more reliable flight information across the board, which might filter down in various ways.
That seems to be the promise, yes. A more robust data foundation for the industry.
It's quite amazing how quickly they seem to have progressed. Can we walk through their timeline briefly? It seems very compressed.
It really does. According to their site, the founders first met in July 2023, just a couple of years ago.
Okay, July 2023. Then what?
But by November 2023, so only a few months later, they launched a public beta. That initial phase used build-your-own-device hardware, kind of like a proof of concept.
Very fast. From idea to beta in months.
Then things really accelerated in 2024. May 2024 saw the first rewards being generated, but on their test net, like a practice network.
Right.
June 2024, they closed a $3.5 million seed funding round.
Okay, first major investment.
By October 2024, they hit that 2,000-plus stations milestone, which is when they started claiming the fastest growing title.
And then came their own hardware.
Exactly.
Yeah.
November 2024, they opened pre-orders for the official Wingbits-approved hardware. The one with the proof of location tech, co-engineered with HYFix and GeoNet we mentioned.
That ties into the precision claims.
Right. And around the same time, more funding came in, another $5.6 million announced late 2024, bringing the total up to that $9.2 or $9.3 million figure.
And people actually pre-ordered this hardware?
Apparently so. By January 2025, they reported over 2,000 of these devices had been pre-sold.
So there's definitely demand for participating in their network. What's the next big step for them?
The main event on the horizon is the mainnet launch. That's planned for sometime in 2025.
Mainnet launch. That means the network goes fully live, basically. The tokens have real utility.
That's typically what it means, yes. Moving from the testing phase to full operational status within their ecosystem.
And beyond that, there was mention of a satellite.
Ah, yes. That's a really interesting development reported by Business Insider, a collaboration with Spire Global.
Spire Global, they do satellite data, right?
Yeah, they operate a large constellation.
Yeah.
The plan, apparently, is to launch a dedicated satellite to boost Wingbits' flight tracking accuracy even further, possibly filling gaps where ground stations are sparse.
A satellite. That's
Yeah.
a huge step. That's not cheap.
Not at all. It signals massive ambition and a very long-term vision for global coverage and data quality. Really underscores they're serious about competing.
It's not just about the tech and the tokens, though. They seem to emphasize the community aspect quite a bit.
They do. They constantly refer to their worldwide community of individuals running the hardware.
And they feature user testimonials, like one from Slim from Spain.
Right. Expressing excitement about being part of it, seeing all the planes tracked. It helps make it feel more tangible than just nodes on a map.
So that community engagement, is it just marketing or is it key to how they operate?
I think it's likely quite key. These aren't just data points. They're people who've invested in the hardware and the idea. Keeping them engaged, providing support, getting feedback that's probably crucial for maintaining and growing the network quality. They invite people to shape the future of aviation together.
And their blog seems to reflect that ongoing communication. What were the recent updates?
Let's see. April 11th, 2025, they introduced manual claiming of rewards. Seems focused on giving users more direct control over their earnings.
Okay, user control.
April 3rd, there was a Q1 2025 log, just highlighting progress, saying they're reaching new heights, kind of a status update.
Standard quarterly stuff.
And then back in March 13th, an interesting post about PageRank Reimagined.
PageRank, like the Google algorithm.
Sort of borrowing the concept.
Yeah.
It discussed how they're thinking about equitable rewards, how to value the data from different locations or contributors fairly. It suggests they're actively refining the reward system, not just setting it in stone.
So trying to make the Wings distribution fair based on data contribution value, that's complex.
Definitely. But important for keeping contributors motivated long-term, I imagine.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. If we were to summarize Wingbits from this deep dive, what are the key takeaways?
Well, fundamentally, they're challenging the old way of doing flight tracking, the volunteer model.
Right. They're replacing unpaid volunteers with an incentivized network.
Using their own crypto token, Wings, as the reward. And they're building this on a foundation of custom, secure hardware.
With a big emphasis on data accuracy, verification using cryptography, and even aiming for that millimeter-level precision.
Yeah, security and accuracy seem paramount. They're addressing the weaknesses they identified in the traditional systems, like spoofing and inconsistency.
And they've grown incredibly quickly, secured significant funding, and have ambitious plans, including launching a satellite.
Which points to a serious attempt to become a major player in the aviation data space.
So for our listeners, someone interested in quickly grasping new knowledge, what's the relevance here?
I think Wingbits is a really interesting case study. It sits at the intersection of, established industry aviation and new technology, specifically crypto incentives and decentralized networks, or DePIN, as it's sometimes called.
DePIN, Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Networks.
Yep.
Yeah.
It shows how that model can be applied to a real-world problem, collecting vital data. And it highlights this fundamental shift, moving away from relying purely on goodwill or hobbyists towards a model where contributing valuable data is directly compensated.
That shift itself feels significant, from unpaid to paid contribution for critical infrastructure data.
Exactly. That's a core change in philosophy and economics for this kind of data collection.
It really makes you think. We talked about aviation, which obviously relies heavily on this kind of real-time, accurate data. But thinking bigger, what other industries rely on widespread, real-time data collection where maybe a decentralized, rewarded model like Wingbits could apply? Could this be, a preview of how we gather data for other essential services in the future?
That's a great question to ponder. Weather data, environmental monitoring, logistics tracking, anywhere you need distributed sensors and reliable, verifiable information. Maybe this incentivized model has wider applications we haven't even fully explored yet.
Compensating individuals directly for the data that powers our world. It's definitely food for thought.
It certainly is a potential glimpse into a different data economy.
Thanks for tuning in. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Music, or your favorite app. And connect with us on LinkedIn for more stories and insights.